Hello, thanks for joining me. If you're new here, my name's Liv, and this class is all about helping you care for lower back pain. So this is a really gentle and soft class for when you're experiencing lower back pain and feel like you can't move too much, but you want to bring a little bit of movement and find some stretches to help ease the pain. I use a couple of blocks in this one. So if you have those and you know that you like to use them, make sure that you have them to hand, but you absolutely don't need to use them, so don't worry if you haven't got them. But if you find you want to use them but don't have them, you can use something like some hardback books or just something that you can pop your hands on. I also use a blanket just to go under the knees, so you can find a blanket, a towel, a cushion or something just to give you a little bit of extra padding under the knees. So when you're ready, you can grab the things that you need and then we'll get started. So we're going to start this one lying down. So make your way lying down on the ground with the knees hugging up towards the chest. We're going to start here by taking the knees round in circles, moving the knees in the same direction. Just feeling into this first little bit of movement. Noticing how the ground is helping to massage the lower back, the sacrum. And just being really mindful throughout this whole class about how you're feeling today, how your body feels. Remembering that I'm just here to guide you. And so if you experience any serious pain or serious discomfort, always feel free to stop what we're doing, have a little break, and you can join back in if you want to, or you can just call it a day. And also just being mindful of what your body is capable of today. So you might have pretty restricted movement because of the pain, and just seeing if you can be okay with that. It can be really frustrating to not be able to move like you usually can, but seeing if you can show yourself some kindness and bring some softness into the body through that kindness. I'm trying to let go of a little bit of that frustration and just working with what you can do today. Good, and then we'll start to take those circles round the other way if you haven't already. And notice if you're moving quite fast here, maybe seeing if you can slow the movement down, maybe syncing up with your breath, slowing the breath down as well. Good, and if you feel like you want a little bit more movement here, feel free to take these circles a little bit bigger. And you can even start to drop the knees over to one side if that feels okay for you, letting the knees fall down, coming into a bit of a twist. You can extend the arms out, maybe looking in the opposite direction of the knees. But if this feels like much too much, just stay with these knee circles. Good, and if you're in the twist, feel free to stay there for longer, otherwise you can move back through center, dropping the knees over to the other side. And through this whole class, we're going to see if we can keep the breath smooth and steady. Nice deep inhales and exhales, inviting the air down into the belly and the space between the ribs. Good, and then wherever you are, we'll just come to meet back in center. Drop the feet down to the floor, keeping the knees bent. From here, we're going to take some pelvic tilts. So starting by pressing the tailbone, that very lowest bit of your back into the ground, so that this lumbar section, this kind of midsection, lifts away from the floor a little bit. And then doing the opposite, pressing the lumbar spine into the floor so that the sacrum and tailbone lift away from the floor a little bit. And then just moving between these two, pressing the tailbone down, lumbar spine might lift away a little bit, and then pressing the lumbar spine in, tailbone lifts a little bit. And then just finding a rhythm here, maybe syncing up with the breath again, keeping this movement slow and controlled. Good. And you can use the feet here as well a little bit if you want a bit more as the tailbone lifts, pressing into the feet so this lower back area lifts off a little bit more. But again, just finding what works for you, keeping the movement small or taking it as big as you want to, just moving within your pain limits. Good, we'll just take 2 more in each direction. Good. And then lowering the back down into its neutral position. Good. From here, we're going to step the feet just a little bit wider than hip width apart. And then start to press the right knee down towards the bottom right hand corner of your mat. And then bringing that hip back. And then the same on the left. Left knee pushes away towards the bottom right hand corner of the mat. And then come back to center. And then just moving like this, finding this kind of side to side rocking through the hips and the pelvis. Again, keeping this movement fairly slow, steady, controlled, along with the breath. And if it feels like you want a little bit more movement here, you can make this movement a little bit bigger by dropping the knees further. And you can drop, so if the left knee is coming down, you can drop the right knee out to the side. And good, and then up through center over to the other side. But just see, again, moving within your pain limits. See what you can do today, what feels good for your body. And if you experience lower back pain quite a lot, you might come back to this video again and again and notice that some days you have more movement, some days you'll have less movement. And again, just practicing that acceptance and of being okay with that, not adding more frustration to your pain by being frustrated about what you can't do. Which is easier said than done. Good, just take 1 more to each side. And then coming back to center. From here, hugging the knees in, and we're going to squeeze the knees up towards the chest. Tailbone, sacrum might lift away from the floor a little bit, and then release back down. Dropping the knees away, straightening out through the arms. The shoulders might lift away a little bit from the floor. And then just repeating that a couple more times, squeezing the knees in, and then knees fall away. Squeezing in, knees fall away. Good. Take it once more if that's feeling nice. Good, and then from here we're going to roll over to one side, just pausing here, feeling the ground underneath you. Good, and then when you're ready, slowly making your way up. And we're going to come to all fours. So once you're there, bringing wrists underneath shoulders, knees underneath hips, and we'll start with some gentle cat-cows. So moving with the breath, if it's feeling comfortable for you. Inhaling to drop the belly, lift the chest, look forwards. This one is cow pose. And then rounding through the spine, tailbone tucks under, head drops down, chin to chest. The cat pose. Good, and then inhaling, drop the belly. Exhale for cat. Good, and then just moving at your own pace here. Good. Once more each way. And then when you're in this cow pose with the belly dropped, chest lifted, focusing on this spinal extension. So we're really trying to find this length through the spine as if you're trying to reach the tailbone away from you. We're going to come back to this action a little bit later in another pose. So just taking the time to kind of feel what that is, the difference between this tucked pelvis and this extended spine. And then from here, we're going to shuffle this right foot all the way around to the outside of the right hand, and then slowly make our way up to this lunge position. Feel free to hold onto a wall or a table or whatever you've got close if you're feeling a little bit wobbly. And you might want to bring a blanket or towel underneath this back knee for a little bit more padding. Then from here, we're going to find this kind of tucked pelvis again, engaging the glutes, to then press the hips forwards. We're really trying to keep the pelvis in this position, so not sinking into the hips too much here, but keeping the pelvis tucked, glutes engaged, to focus on finding a stretch through the front of the left hip. Then you can bring your hands to your lower back, roll the shoulders up towards the ears and then back, opening up through the chest. Good, keep the glutes engaged. Stretching out through the front of this hip is a great way to kind of reverse the effects of sitting down. Good, one more inhale, exhale here. And then releasing out of this one, dropping the hands down. And we're going to start to straighten out through this front leg, shifting the hips back a little bit, but just so they stay roughly on top of this back knee. If you need a little bit more space, you can bring blocks under your hands, bringing the ground a little bit closer to you. And then turning the front toes up towards the sky. This front leg doesn't have to be completely straight. You can keep a quite generous bend. And then we're going to focus on this spinal extension, so that cow pose, reaching the tailbone away to find a big stretch through the back of this front leg. Keep breathing. This one can feel really intense. So trying your best to focus on the breath, keeping the breath smooth and steady. Breathing down into the belly, letting the muscles around the belly be a little bit soft so it can move freely with the breath. Good. Keep thinking about reaching the tailbone away. Good. One more inhale, exhale here. And then we'll release out of that, come back to all fours. Maybe taking couple of rounds of cat-cow here, just easing out through the spine, or you might want to send the hips back for child's pose, taking a pause there. Good, and then coming back to all fours when you're ready. We'll do those two on the other side. So left foot makes its way to the outside of the left hand, and then making your way up to this lunge position. Again, holding on to something or keeping this left foot kind of out towards the left to keep you a little bit more stable if you're feeling wobbly. And then focusing on engaging the glutes, pressing the hips forwards a little bit, but without letting the pelvis tilt backwards. Leaning into the hips, and then bring the hands to the lower back, reaching the shoulders up towards the ears, and then back to open up through the chest. Finding that stretch through the front of the right hip. Keep the breath steady. Again, there's a lot going on here, it can feel quite intense. Keep the glutes engaged. Good. One more inhale and exhale. And then we'll drop the hands down. Extend out through that front leg, maybe shifting it just back to center. Front toes turn up. And again, if you want a bit more space, you can come up onto blocks here, and that will help the chest stay nice and open. And then again, we're trying to find that spinal extension, so reaching the tailbone away. And even with quite a deep bend in this front leg, you'll still find that stretch with the working with the spine. Good. Keep the chest lifted, shoulders moving away from the ears. Good, and then one last inhale and exhale. And then you can start to make your way out of that one. We're going to bring the knees wide, send the hips back for child's pose, extending the arms out in front, letting the hips soften down towards the heels. If child's pose doesn't feel comfortable for you, feel free to come onto your back and hug the knees in towards the chest like we had at the start of the class. This is going to be our final pose. We'll just take a few rounds, some nice deep breaths. Just giving the body this last little bit of time to settle and soften down into the ground. Good. And then feel free to stay here for as long as you want to, but if you're ready to move out, just making your way back up to a seated position, whatever is comfortable for you. And then just taking a second here to pause, maybe closing the eyes or softening the gaze down towards the ground. And just take a second to send yourself some love. Appreciating the body that you have, and appreciating yourself for taking the time out of your day to do something good for you, practicing self-care, self-love. So thank you for practicing with me today. I really hope this class helped with the pain. Feel free to come back to it any time. And next week, I'm going to be doing a video to help prevent lower back pain. So we'll be working on strengthening the whole core and stretching out some of these places that get a little bit tight. So I'll put a link to it if it's already gone past next week in the description below, but otherwise you can tune in next week to find that one. And if you've been enjoying my videos, please like and subscribe, and you can leave me a comment down below to let me know how you got on with this one. So thank you so much. See you again soon. Bye.